Have you ever felt that cold, heavy certainty in the pit of your stomach? The one that whispers to you that your world is about to tilt on its axis, even when the sun is shining and the birds are singing their oblivious songs. That feeling hit me like a physical blow on a Tuesday afternoon, an afternoon that had started with such mundane, oppressive worry. I was on my way to my father's house, a weekly pilgrimage that had become both a comfort and a source of deepening anxiety. His illness was a slow-moving storm cloud that had settled over our family, and I, his only child, was the sole lightning rod for its weight. The drive was automatic, my hands gripping the steering wheel as my mind raced through a familiar, grim checklist. Had he taken his morning medication? Was the visiting nurse coming on time? Did he sound tired on the phone last night? Interwoven with these thoughts was the concurrent worry for my husband, Liam. His contracting business, once his pride and our security, was crumbling. Each phone call that went unanswered, each invoice that remained unpaid, was another stone added to the immense pressure on his shoulders. He'd left that morning with a forced smile, dressed in his only good suit, for what he called a make-or-break interview for a stable management position across town. I prayed for him, for us, for a sliver of good news in a sea of uncertainty. The streets to my father's neighborhood were lined with manicured lawns and stately oaks, a picture of tranquility that felt like a mockery of the turmoil churning inside me. This place, the backdrop of my entire childhood, usually felt like coming home. But today, every familiar landmark only amplified my sense of dread, as if the peaceful facade was about to crack and show the decay beneath. I just wanted to see my father's face, to sit with him in the quiet of his study, and, for a few hours, pretend we were all going to be okay. As I rounded the final corner onto a street, my foot instinctively eased off the accelerator. Something was wrong. It wasn't the house, which stood exactly as it always had, a bastion of brick and ivy against the passage of time. It was the car parked just outside the wrought iron gate. A dusty, dark blue sedan, its bumper still holding the faint memory of a sticker from a national park we'd visited years ago. Liam's car. My breath hitched in my throat. It couldn't be. His interview was miles away, on the other side of the city, in the opposite direction. He had kissed me goodbye with such earnest hope, promising to call the second he was out. My mind scrambled for a logical explanation. Maybe the interview was canceled? Maybe he'd finished early and decided to check on Dad himself? But the feeling in my gut rejected these simple answers. It felt clandestine. Secretive. Why wouldn't he have told me? A cold trickle of suspicion, ugly and unwelcome, began to seep into my consciousness. We were a team. We told each other everything. Or so I had believed. The sight of his car, so ordinary and familiar, was suddenly transformed into an object of profound betrayal. It was a silent testament to a secret he was keeping, a meeting he was having without me, at the one place that should have been a sanctuary for us all. My heart began to hammer a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat of impending disaster. I pulled my own car over to the curb a block away, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key in the ignition. The world outside my windshield seemed to fade, replaced by the deafening roar of my own thoughts. What was he doing in there? And what, in God's name, was he doing with my father? A primal, desperate need for answers propelled me from the car. I walked, not strolled, my steps quick and silent on the pavement. The sunny warmth of the afternoon felt like a cruel irony against the chill that had settled deep in my bones. I bypassed the main gate, the familiar squeak of its hinge suddenly too loud, too revealing. Instead, I slipped through a gap in the thick hedge that bordered the property, my heart pounding with a rhythm of guilt and righteousness. This was my childhood home. I knew its every secret path and hiding place. My destination was the side of the house, where the large bay window of my father's study looked out onto the rose garden my mother had so lovingly tended. That study was his world now, the command center from which he faced his illness with quiet dignity. It was where he read, where he paid his bills, and where he would undoubtedly be sitting with Liam. As I drew closer, the muffled sound of voices confirmed my fears, indistinct but charged with a low, serious energy. I flattened myself against the cool brick wall, tucking myself behind a large azalea bush that offered just enough cover. My breath came in shallow, silent gasps. I felt like a spy in my own life, a trespasser on the territory of my own family. The cheerful chirping of a robin in the oak tree above felt like a sound from another universe. In my universe, there was only the window, the low murmur of voices, and the terrifying chasm of the unknown that was about to open up before me. I leaned in, straining to catch the words, pressing my ear against the cold, unfeeling glass that separated me from the truth, whatever it might be. The voices became clearer, fragmented but sharp enough to pierce my heart. First, Liam's. It was strained, tight with a tension I had never heard from him before, a sound of pure desperation. No other choice, Arthur. I've explored every other avenue. This is it, my blood ran cold. Every other avenue? What was he talking about? Then, my father's voice, weaker than Liam's, but carrying its usual weight of calm authority. Are you absolutely certain about this, son? Once it's gone, it's gone. There is no replacing something with this much history, son. He had always called Liam that. A term of endearment that now felt like a conspiratorial whisper. History? Replacing? My mind, already primed for the worst, began to construct a horrifying narrative. Were they talking about my mother's jewelry? The antique furniture passed down through generations? Was Liam, in his desperation, convincing my sick father to sell off pieces of our family's legacy? Then came the words from Liam that shattered my world completely. She can never know, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, thick with an emotion I couldn't place. The shame. I can't let her carry this too. On top of everything else. Just take it. Please. The money will be enough to what? To pay off his debts? To fund a new, reckless venture? The word shame echoed in my head. It confirmed everything. He was hiding a monumental failure, a collapse so complete that he had to resort to this, to taking from my father, to plotting behind my back. The love and trust one had held for him moments before curdled into a bitter, burning acid in my chest. He was trying to protect me from shame, but all I felt was the searing humiliation of his deceit. The man I had married, the man I had built a life with, was a stranger. I couldn't stand there a second longer, listening to the methodical destruction of my trust. The quiet, calculating spy in me was consumed by a tidal wave of raw, unfiltered emotion. Anger, hot and righteous, propelled me away from the window. My feet crunched on the gravel path as I stormed towards the front door, no longer caring about secrecy. I fumbled in my purse for my key, my fingers trembling with rage. The heavy oak door swung open with a familiar groan, a sound that usually meant comfort and homecoming. Today, it was the opening salvo in a war I never knew I was fighting. I didn't bother to close it behind me. The sudden shaft of bright sunlight that sliced into the dim hallway felt like an intrusion, just as I was. I strode directly towards the study, my footsteps echoing unnaturally in the profound silence that had fallen upon the house. My entrance must have been heard. When I reached the doorway of the study, the scene was exactly as I had pictured, yet 1,000 times worse. My father was sitting in his large, worn leather wingback chair, his frail frame looking smaller than ever, his face etched with a deep, weary sadness. And there, standing near the fireplace with his back to me, was Liam. He turned slowly, almost reluctantly, as if my very presence was a physical force. The expression on his face was not one of a cunning manipulator caught in the act. It was a mask of utter shock, his eyes wide with a panicked, hunted look. And then my gaze fell upon the small, mahogany table between them. On its polished surface sat a dark, square, velvet box. It was closed, but its presence was monumental, a tiny coffin holding the corpse of my marriage. My world narrowed to that single object, the symbol of their secret pact. My voice, when I finally found it, did not sound like my own. It was thin and brittle, shaking with an uncontrollable tremor of fury and heartbreak. "What is this?" I demanded, my words slicing through the heavy silence of the room. I took a step forward, my eyes darting from the velvet box to Liam's ashen face, then to my father's. "Liam? What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at an interview," the accusation hung in the air, thick and suffocating. And what are you selling to my father behind my back? My gaze locked onto Liam, daring him to answer, to lie, to give me any explanation that I could tear apart. He just stood there, frozen, his mouth slightly agape, looking like a man who had just seen a ghost. His guilt was so palpable it was almost a physical entity in the room. He couldn't even look at me. His eyes fell to the floor, a silent admission of his deception. Frustrated by his silence, I turned my burning gaze on my father. Dad? How could you? The question was a plea as much as an accusation. You know what he's going through. You know the pressure he's under. Are you enabling this? Are you buying our problems away so he doesn't have to face them? So he can hide his failures from me. I felt a tear escape and trace a hot path down my cheek, a tear of rage, not of sorrow. I had come here to protect my father, and instead, I found him embroiled in a secret, shameful transaction with my husband. The two men I loved most in the world, the twin pillars of my life, were united in a conspiracy against me, and the betrayal was a physical pain, sharp and deep in my chest. It was my father who finally broke the unbearable silence. His voice, though frail, resonated with a gentle strength that commanded attention. It cut through my anger like a soothing balm. Alara, my dear girl, he began, his eyes holding mine with a look of profound compassion, not guilt. It is not what you think. You have misunderstood. He gestured with a slightly trembling hand towards Liam, a silent instruction. Liam. Show her. Liam, who still looked utterly shattered, hesitated for a moment before his hands moved with a leaden reluctance towards the velvet box on the table. He picked it up as if it weighed 100 pounds. His fingers, usually so steady and capable, fumbled with the simple clasp. He avoided my eyes, instead focusing intently on the task, as if the fate of the world rested on opening that tiny box. With a soft click, the lid sprang open. My heart braced for the sight of my mother's engagement ring, or perhaps the pearls my grandmother had left me. I was ready to see a piece of my history, my heritage, being bartered away. But what lay nestled on the cushion of dark blue velvet was not mine. It was a watch. A man's watch. It was old, a beautiful steel chronograph with 3 subdials and elegant, worn hands. I recognized it instantly. It was Liam's grandfather's watch, the one he had been given when the old man passed away. It was the only thing of real value he had left from his side of the family, his most deeply cherished possession. It was more than an object to him. It was a symbol of the hardworking, honorable man he aspired to be, a connection to a past he revered. My father's voice was soft, but each word landed with the force of a revelation. He's not selling what is ours, Alara, he said, his gaze never leaving my face. He is selling what is his. Everything that is his. The meaning of my father's words washed over me, but the full truth was still obscured by a fog of confusion. It was Liam who cleared it. He finally lifted his head, and I saw that his eyes were glistening with unshed tears. The shame I had imagined was there, but it was not the kind I had suspected. It was deeper, more personal, more painful. His voice, when he spoke, was ragged and choked with emotion. The bank, he started, then stopped to swallow hard. The bank is going to foreclose on the house. The final notice came in the mail yesterday, my own breath caught in my throat. The house. Our home. The place we had poured our love and meager savings into. The interview, he continued, shaking his head slowly, it was a long shot, Alara. A desperation play. I didn't get it. They called me an hour after I left to tell me they'd gone with an internal candidate. He looked at me then, his gaze raw with a vulnerability I had never seen before. I have failed, he whispered, the words costing him everything. I failed you. I couldn't bear the thought of telling you we were going to lose our home, not now, not on top of worrying about your dad. I couldn't add that burden. So I came here, his eyes flickered towards my father. I came to ask for a loan. But I couldn't just come and ask for a handout. I couldn't just take this watch. An appraiser told me it's worth just enough to cover the mortgage payments for the next 6 months. To give us some breathing room. A chance to get back on our feet. He looked back at me, his confession a torrent of pain. I was asking him to buy it from me. So I could save our home without you ever having to know the depth of my failure, Without you ever having to feel the shame that I feel right now, it wasn't a betrayal of me. It was a desperate, tragically misguided act of love, an attempt to shield me from the wreckage of his world by sacrificing the last relic of his own. The towering edifice of my anger and betrayal crumbled into dust instantly. In its place, a wave of profound, aching love surged through me, so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. The man standing before me was not a liar or a coward. He was a proud, good man, broken by circumstance and cornered by a world that had become relentlessly cruel. He was a man willing to quietly sell his own soul, his last tangible piece of his own history, just to protect me from pain. My feet moved without conscious thought, closing the distance between us. The velvet box lay forgotten on the table. I reached up and gently took his face in my hands, forcing him to meet my gaze. "Your shame," I whispered, my own voice thick with tears. "Liam, your pride, your struggle, your failures. They are my failures too. We are a team. We have always been a team. You never, ever have to carry something like this alone. Your burden is my burden." I could feel the tension in his jaw begin to release under my touch as a single tear finally escaped his eye and rolled down his cheek. I wiped it away with my thumb. Then I turned to my father, who was watching us with an expression of infinite wisdom and tenderness. "Dad," I said, my voice stronger now, resolute. "We can't do this. We can't let you buy this from him." A slow, genuine smile spread across my father's face, reaching his tired eyes and making them sparkle. "I never intended to buy it," he said softly. "I was merely holding it. I was testing the character of the man my daughter married. I was seeing if he would come to me with empty hands and excuses, or if he would come with honor, willing to make a sacrifice." He passed Alara. With flying colors, he looked at Liam. "We don't sell this watch. We put it away in a safe place, for your son one day. And tomorrow morning, the three of us are going to call the bank. Together." That moment in my father's study was a crucible. It burned away all the fear, the secrecy, and the pride that had been poisoning us, leaving only the pure, unbreakable alloy of our bond. We didn't sell the watch. As my father had insisted, we put it away, a symbol not of sacrifice, but of integrity. The next day, armed with my father's sharp mind and unwavering support, we faced the bank not as desperate individuals, but as a united family. He helped us navigate the complex maze of restructuring our debt, offering some of his own savings not as a gift, but as collateral for a formal loan which we would, and did, repay with interest. His belief in us was the leverage we needed. The immediate threat lifted, and Liam, freed from the crushing weight of his solitary struggle, seemed to stand taller. He let go of the ghost of his failed business and, with a clear head, found a stable, respectable job in project management within a few weeks. It wasn't his dream, but it was honorable work, and he did it with a renewed sense of purpose. Our marriage, which had felt so fragile just moments before I burst into that room, became the strongest it had ever been. We had faced the abyss and chosen to build a bridge across it together. The foundation of that bridge was the painful, beautiful truth that had been revealed in that quiet study. The silence between us was no longer filled with unspoken anxieties, but with a comfortable, deep understanding. We had learned that true strength wasn't about avoiding failure, but about how you faced it. And true love wasn't about shielding your partner from the storm, but about holding the umbrella over them and walking through the rain together. My father, seeing his family whole and strong, seemed to find a new vitality. His health didn't miraculously recover, but his spirit did. He had secured his true legacy, not in possessions or money, but in the resilience and love of the family he had nurtured. They say love is about grand gestures, but sometimes it's about the silent sacrifices no one is ever meant to see. It's about the pride swallowed in a quiet room, the desperate plans made not out of malice, but out of a fierce, protective love. It's in the quiet integrity that shines through even in the darkest moments. So, the next time you feel the cold chill of doubt, the next time you fear the worst, I urge you to look closer. The truth might not be the betrayal you fear, but a story of love so profound it will take your breath away. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that they are not alone in their struggles. Tell your partner, your friend, your family, we are a team because the heaviest burdens become light when they are finally, bravely shared.